Welcome to our panel discussion. We're talking about a very sensitive issue today. Is there such a thing as anti-Semitic Jews? Well, Barbara Kay wrote an article for the National Post, and she discusses the scourge of anti-Semitic Jews. We're here to discuss it, what perhaps is behind it, and where it's taking us to. Our guests today, Bill Smythe, Marian Walters, and George Woodward. Thanks for joining me. This article was so strong. Barbara Kay minced no words. She comes right out and declares there is such a thing as an anti-Semitic Jew. In fact, she starts out her article by saying something very sad indeed, that when you look at the days of Hitler, his actions were to rid Europe of its Jews, she says. And when he died, his dream died too. But now she's saying there is such a genocidal attack against Israel, and she's saying this new genocidal dreams, they're global, and today's would-be Hitlers, she says, are plentiful. When one dies, 100 more are recruited. And she's talking about the Jewish intelligentsia that has joined on to that bandwagon. Of course, we're going to discuss more about what she thinks is behind it, how she describes it, some of the quotes that she's made that's quite shocking. But I want to start off by discussing this phenomenon. And I'll say from my perspective, I always wondered why it is that Jewish people will turn on the state of Israel the way they do under a pretense of trying to be fair to both sides. They know that Israel is under attack. They know that the PA, the Hamas, and the Fatah charters call for the obliteration of Israel. Why do they do this? And this article attempts to discuss that. I'm going to start with you, George, on your analysis of not just the article, but how your opinion might have been on the subject before reading Barbara Kay's article.
Well, I think, first of all, the likelihood of there being Jewish people that actually have this mindset, as we've described here, it's possible. I would question a little bit, though, the actual, if you look at the understanding of who Jewish people are, for them to have that as then their core of how they would conduct themselves and conduct their lives, that's incongruent. That just doesn't go together. But I know that there are those that think that way. And I'm sure that if we looked at our own country, we could think about, there's some people here in Canada, they're Canadians, yet they have some very strange views. They certainly don't represent the entirety of our country. And I don't think these that they're discussing in this do either, but they're there.
At the same time, you're looking at a state that's facing, probably the only state in the world, facing an existential threat.
It makes no sense.
No, it makes no sense at all. She calls it pathological altruism.
Well, I agree with George on this. These people are very strange. I mean, there are two people that she quotes in her article. Michael Newman from Trent University,
yes.
A philosopher, I believe. This is what he says: if it means encouraging vicious, racist, anti-Semitism or the destruction of the state of Israel, I still don't care. And what he's saying is he wants to help the Palestinians.
But he even says, or the destruction of the state of Israel, quote, I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He said his intention is to help the Palestinians no matter what happens.
And then there's another
It's a shocking statement.
There's another loony, Nitzan Tal from Hebrew University. and he says the IDF, the IDF not raping Palestinian women.
It's racism.
It's racist. and
Imagine if they were, what she'd call it, no matter what Israel does.
No, you can't win.
And I mean, these are the sort of loony views that George is talking about. But I mean, I really think they're best ignored. Because only academics, especially in philosophy or sociology, could hold such ridiculous ideas. Only in academia could they be given any credence or attention. I think those sorts of anti-Semitic Jews, I think we can just safely ignore.
I wish.
But they do exist. I mean,
they do exist.
And they're used.
if you've gone to a counter, what's the word? Anyway, when they're out there doing their protests and you're doing a counter protest, there are Jews involved, certainly in my community. And I would say that they do indeed see themselves as the real good, protecting Judaism in their own way. Judaism where you don't kill people, you reason with people. I mean, it's ridiculous when you think about it for Israel. but at the limit.
But don't we all want peace? That's
Well, we all
the
want
thing.
peace, but they're saying don't fight.
Israel's
It's-
getting attacked.
But it's like Mahatma Gandhi said in World War II, his advice to the Jews was, just don't flee, don't resist, just allow
Just be
yourself to be
obliterated.
killed by your
Just be
enemies.
obliterated.
So, I mean, it's super one direction. That's the altruism, I guess.
All pathological altruism, that's what...
Yeah, that's
She
what
called
that
it.
is. But I think there are other reasons, too.
What other reasons?
Well, I think some...
Now, you're the psychologist.
Oh, no, but I'm not going that route. No.
Sorry, too late, no one's listening.
I'm not going to say anything that would say that. I think some of them think that they're sort of reflecting the views of some of the Jews in Israel.
Yes.
But I think they're wrong because, in fact, in Israel, there are only 8% who are extreme on the extreme liberal left. They are heard more because they're the academics, the media, and so their word gets out more to the diaspora. But anyway, I think some of them believe that, and some just don't want to. These aren't the ones who would stand out there and counter-protest,
Yes.
probably, but they just don't want to make trouble.
Now, I asked some youngsters that question once. Why is it that you find Jews in Jerusalem, of all places, supporting this, supporting the other side? And the answer was quite interesting. This was with a swap program where they bring students up from Israel, and they can be a mix, but they all support Israel's right to exist. And I asked these kids, well, you know, what is it? What is it with the other side? And the answer was that we regard ourselves as the epitome of human rights. And we have a high expectation of ourselves. So that if it's seen that we're killing somebody, no matter what that reason is, it's just totally not acceptable. So there's no reasoning as to what would happen if you sat and did nothing. It's an expectation that they have of themselves, and that's it. That's all that's seen.
That's youth and idealism, and that I think
Yes.
we all felt that way at some time. I thought if somebody was going to shoot me, I'd let them shoot me before I'd shoot them. I don't feel
Yes,
that way.
George has
anymore.
something to say. I'm going to let him say it now.
No, I just, I just think that those, if it's young people primarily, I think they're very sincere, or at least they perceive their sincerity in what they're doing. But I would really like to suggest that they're coming from a place of not understanding the much bigger picture, not understanding really what their forefathers have gone through and what's brought them to where they are, and the reasons that they exist as
Yes.
a nation, and the totality of what's required
His
of that
goodwill.
nation. And to really grasp that, I think that would really help them see a very different picture. I just don't feel that we, it's easy to sort of think, come on now, smarten up. But I think they're very sincere. I just think they're sincerely misled in what they're thinking and what they're doing.
Before we close, I want to bring up a point that Barbara Kay has written. I think it's a very important thought to leave our viewers with. She says, she challenges, in fact, ask a hardline BDS Jew what Israel could possibly do to meet BDS standards for a morality pure enough to call off the boycott and still maintain its national security. And she will not be able to give you an answer. She goes on to say, too, finishing up, that they remind me of families from the Middle East and South Asia who feel that their daughter has shamed them by her impurity and believe the only way to redress their family's honor is through her sacrifice. The BDS crowd's disgust with Israel is that it's visceral. This is a powerful note. And any quick words before we close?
Well, I think perhaps one sort of person that we haven't talked about is the person who equivocates, who doesn't do anything. I mean, I'm talking about Jews now, not the rabid Jews, not the young Jews, but just Jews who don't want to get involved.
Yes.
And Abu Yehuda, who is a Jew who lived in Fresno, California for about a quarter of a century and recently moved back to Israel. He gives an anecdote in a recent blog of when IPAC, the American-Israeli Public Affairs Committee, came to Fresno to talk about the deal with Iran. And the natural place to hold this conversation was in the Reform Synagogue. Where did they hold it? In an evangelical church. Across town. Because those evangelicals were more interested in standing up for
Yes.
Israel than the
And that's another
Reformed
subject
Jews.
matter, because even now we're seeing some of that turning as a result of the propaganda. And unfortunately, we're out of time. Bill, Marianne, and George, thank you so much for joining me.
Please share this video, and on YouTube, click the button below to become a subscriber. In consideration of Canada's 150th birthday, please consider 150 ways to bless Israel through your Christian embassy, the ICEJ Canada. Consider becoming a $150 monthly donor. Plant 150 trees, 150 prayers for Israel. The opportunities are endless. Please contact us.